Okay, so the last thing we wanted to talk about was how has the Enneagram been useful for us? Because if someone's going to invest in the time to take our classes to learn about the Enneagram, we want them to know what a powerful influence it can be or how it can really help us. So I want to first talk about as a therapist, beyond what I have learned personally. Using the Enneagram as a tool for therapy has been incredibly helpful because I can work with couples and they will come in with these very different ways of seeing things. And they think of it in terms of my idea is right, theirs is wrong, or mine is good and yours is bad, which is not a really helpful way for couples to be trying to solve problems. And the Enneagram almost immediately moves them off of that stance. That by learning that, say, I'll give you an example. A common couple problem is if you have one person who's a type 3, very focused on achievement, getting things done, the value of work, competition, and they are connected either as a couple or parent and child with a 4 whose emphasis is emotions and authenticity and please understand me. And I want to live the world in such an authentic way, it immediately puts them up with things that what they are looking for are very different. And when we start looking at it as the Enneagram and different types, there's almost an immediate softening of this idea of right and wrong. And so it's helpful in my work with couples. It's also incredibly helpful for parents and children. So many parents assume our children are like ourselves, or we just aren't attuned to how different our children may be in this world than we are. And so, again, with a parent as a 3, a child as a 4, you get the parent saying, you need to work hard to be a success in the world. And the child says, I don't want to do everything like everybody else. I want this life that where I felt truly understood and where emotions are important and art and various things. So it's been incredibly helpful as a tool, as a therapist. That's one of the things that I feel like it's really helped me to do a better job working with people. What's some way it's helped you in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think of this sort of in a two-prong way. First, how I improved as a person, and that made me able to coach more effectively. And
Mhm.
then using it in the actual coaching is a very interesting experience. On the personal side, my
Yeah.
attention goes so quickly towards evaluating risks, and I never knew that about myself before I met the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Understanding that I do that has just been of huge value to me across every realm of life. Now I know, at work, in relationships, wherever, I know what I'm up against. As a type 6, it's going to be doubt, uncertainty, hesitation, lack of confidence,
Yes.
risk aversion in my case, my version of 6.
Yes.
Uh, and just generally playing small in life. These are going to be the things I bump into, and they used to seem like swirling chaos.
Mhm.
Now I can see that they're patterned, recurring issues.
Yes.
That's something I can actually deal with, you
Yeah.
know?
And
Uh,
I like how you put that. These are patterns. These are habits. These are sort of the habitual way of thinking. And if we're aware of them, again, talking about you can't solve something that you don't know is a problem. I, as a 9, can read about nines and go, gee, is that true for me? Do I have trouble making decisions? Yes, I do. And so I have to sometimes use tricks to get me out of that place of sort of feeling paralyzed about not making a decision. So it's been really helpful. Also, there are particular things we can do with the Enneagram um, that increase our awareness, that leave us with maybe meditations on certain things that can be very particular to our type and helping us loosen up some of these patterns. Um, so one other thing that has been useful for me is, again, I'm going to be a 9 for the rest of my life. But we mentioned the idea of wings. I tend to have a strong one wing. And when we talk about wings, we talk about whatever type on this diagram is next to us, the two types next to us. I've lived most of my life being very perfectionistic. And so I have a strong one wing. And I've been, conflict and having people be angry at me has been very, very uncomfortable for me. But I'm actually exploring more of what would it be like to be more assertive. What does an 8 have to offer me? So I love the fact that my sense of myself as a 9 is expanding. I might even, as David Daniels, my teacher, used to say, nines need a little more 7. They need a little more. Hey, this is what I want. Put myself first. So there are all these different ways of being in the world that I feel like I can tap into. They are possible for me. It's and I love that idea that I'm becoming a bigger version of myself. How about you? Anything else that you wanted to say?
Other ways it's been useful to me, the Enneagram is really just useful to me when I'm looking out at the world. When I look at life, what other people are doing, especially when I don't understand why other people are doing what they're doing, I
Mhm,
go,
mhm.
what rational person would do it that way? And I immediately jump into judgment, right?
Yes,
Uh,
I know that position.
yeah, and I mean, it happens for all 9 types do it, jump into judgment in their own ways. But knowing about these different types, it sort of helps me slow down this cascade of events, to just kind of go, well, what if this person were a 3 or an 8 or a 5 or a
Yeah.
1 or, and then to just go, okay, what they're doing probably makes so much sense to them, you know? Uh, and so if it's not hurting me, I can just keep on moving, you know? Uh,
Yes.
I look at the Enneagram sort of as compassion served on a plate, just offered to us.
Yes. I like that a lot. Well, the last thing I'll say is when I first learned about the Enneagram, it was just exactly what you're saying. It was so, and what we've been saying along, it's good to understand there are these very different ways. But I've gone from just being appreciative of my understanding of these different types to really realizing the value of each type, and thank goodness there are all these different types. So before, when my husband and I were first married and we knew nothing about the Enneagram, it was very hard, um, being in a couple relationship with such different ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Then when I learned the Enneagram, it was like, I can understand him. He had a greater understanding of me. So we weren't butting up against each other so much. Now I love being in a relationship with someone who is not like me. It's like I value so much all he has to offer, as every single one of these types have to offer, that it's like what a terrible world it would be without all of these gifts that these types bring. So that's been a pretty big journey, but an important one and a really appreciated one.